Hello, hello, everybody. This is Danielle here, and with you for another episode of the show, our weekly live web show where we interview awesome social entrepreneurs and the people who support them from all over the world. And I'm really excited today to welcome Sammy Wachieni. I forgot to check how to say your last name. Was that proper?
It's close to the proper one.
Close enough?
Yeah.
Wachieni.
Okay. Yeah, Wachieni, yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, thanks Sammy for joining us, and you're joining all the way from Kenya, which actually you and I met in Calgary a few months ago, or I forget how long ago now, but we had a really great session where you spoke with some people in my city here about your business and your vision for changing the face of agriculture in Africa. And I loved everything that you talked about and learned a lot from your experience. So that's why I'm so excited to bring you here for the show today, so that all of our lovely community can learn from your experience as well and get to know your social enterprise. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And if you guys can hear a bit of background noise, just block it out. It's so that we have a stronger internet for Sammy today, so it's worth it. Awesome. So yeah, you are the co-founder of Cow Farm Africa, and we're going to get into more detail about what exactly that is and what you're doing with that. But first, I want people to get to know you as a person. And so the question that I love to ask to kick off our interviews is, describe your ideal day. What does a day in the life of Sammy look like when you're just, getting started for the week or whatever?
Right. My ideal day rotates around understanding how farmers work in Kenya and analyzing value chains in the agricultural sector. And we live in a community where we have very small farms, so our farmers are what you would call subsistence farmers. So my typical day is to work with farmers, trying to understand what challenges they go through and trying to understand what are the gaps in the value chain, and try to develop solutions around those value chains. So the typical farmer will be 63, 70 years. So not many young people will be farmers.
Wow,
so
I didn't know that.
For me, I interact with a lot of older people who actually have problems trying to understand, how the world is changing. And mostly they will be semi-literate, if not illiterate. And my interesting part about that work is to see how can we, people who have at least gone to school a bit, help these people change the view they have about agriculture. So I try to infuse that understanding of this community with technology, and see how can we use technology to transform their thinking around agriculture. And of course, that will only happen if you're able to address the value chain gaps they encounter every day. Part of my day will also rotate around working with more people who are not necessarily farmers, more enlightened people who think that we have a lot of potential in African agriculture, but it is underutilized or not well exploited. And these will be mostly people who think they would like to invest in that space, but they have a lot of questions. They have never been into that space, so they would want to understand, if I was to invest in that space, what would I need to know? What are the requirements? What are the regulations like? What are the returns like? So that is my typical day, from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, perfect. But all in being in touch with the people that you're building your social enterprise around, which is really great. And what about for fun? Like what would you do on an average Friday night, for example?
On an average Friday night, I'll go to a club. I'm not a very heavy night guy, but I'll sleep at around, on a Friday I will sleep at around midnight. On a normal weekday, I'll sleep at around 10.
Yeah.
And I'll wake up at around 6. So the other day I was thinking, very fun guy. I don't watch football. I don't. We do a lot of betting here, so I don't bet. I don't do football.
You're very focused on
don't,
your mission.
I don't even. I don't know. It just happens. So and I'm not a very big fan of politics. So I don't know what, but I have my family, so I have my kids. So I think I spend a lot of time playing with them when I get home.
Yeah, great. When you're not jet setting over to Calgary for leadership training.
Yeah, or when I'm not traveling. Yeah, I also love traveling. Actually, I think I would consider traveling my. Yeah, I will consider that as a hobby. Traveling, it changes the way you view the world. So if I had the way, I would travel all the time.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Okay, so Sammy, tell us a little bit about why you started Crowd Farm Africa and how it came to be.
I started, actually, I am nothing near a farmer. I have no background in farming or even agriculture. So my typical career started in the development sector. So I was working in the health sector, actually. And the health sector, the basic understanding of what we were trying to do was to improve health indicators with rural communities in Kenya. But then, so you realize that a lot of the farmers were the people who would benefit from our services. So these are people who do not even have health insurance. They do not take their kids to school. So we had very disturbing time trying to understand why are they so poor, like desperate, or what we would call desperate situations. And we would try to break that cycle, but somehow that cycle would keep on rotating. So it wouldn't end. So after years, I tried to understand what was the disconnect in this whole thing, and I kind of realized the occupation was where the problem was. Because a lot of the people here are farmers, and they don't view farming as a business. So they do it very casually. So you would consider that as subsistence farming, where they are not even able to feed themselves. So if they continue doing that, I kind of figured out that they would continue being poor. So for us to lift them out of poverty, we had to address what they do every day, and that is farming. So I try to infuse my understanding of development and what they do every day. And of course, there were so many gaps in the whole agricultural value chain. So I tried to see what were the disconnects. Actually, I wrote a lot of the disconnects that I could identify in that. And then from there, we started developing a model of how do we address those gaps. And before we knew it, we had something that was looking like a company. So we started taking shape gradually. Initially, we thought we would be able to address all the gaps, but as we grow and mature in what we are doing, we kind of realize that is a very tall order. So we are trying to focus on what gaps can we be able to address. We cannot address all gaps. So we are trying to narrow down on what would be the gaps that we are able to address.
And so the interesting thing about the evolution, I guess, when you're in the early stages is maybe you can talk a little bit about how initially, and I don't even know the whole story yet, but your model was to use some of the unused land in Africa and essentially crowdfund funding so that farmers could put that land to good use and create produce to not only live on but also sell for more earnings. So tell us a little bit about the model that you started with, and I hear that it's evolving, so I also want to get into that.
So the initial thinking was the gaps we identified in the value chain was, number one, the farms are too tiny because a lot of average farm size is about 2.5 acres. So I think a lot of people don't even understand what 2.5 acres look like when you say it's a farm. So we identified the land size as a huge barrier towards them becoming, self-reliant farmers. Number two was the financing. How do they raise the capital to grow their crops, including fertilizer and certified seeds? And number three was, if they are able to grow the food, how would they sell it? So the marketing part of it. So we tried to start with the first problem, and the first problem was how do we expand this land that they have? And Africans and Kenyans specifically are very, I would call possessive about land. They value land, so they wouldn't want to give it up. So we were trying to look at how do we expand the land that is available for agriculture. And we realized that if you talked about telling people to give up their small little lands, that wouldn't happen. So the alternative was there is open land that is not being utilized, which is basically we call them community lands here. So this is land that is owned by all of us as a community, but because it belongs to all of us, no one uses it. So most of the times they are used as grazing lands or just idle land. So our first thinking was, can we open up those lands because they are big? They will be in thousands of acres. So how do we open up those lands for those particular communities around that own that land? So the thinking was, if we are able to access that land, which we can because we come from those communities, would be how do we finance, that kind of an operation? And our first thinking was we could use a crowd-funded kind of a system to finance the capital required to open up the lands. And then the people would be treated as investors, either local or foreign, and they would expect returns out of the operations of that land. So the land would be commercialized kind of, and returns would be shared between the managers who would be the community who would own the land, and the investors will contribute. So that was our initial thinking. The thinking was the managers would also be charged with the responsibility of the produce. So that is where we thought we had the business, and that was our first business model. But as now it evolves, we realized that we also had gaps in our thinking, a lot of missing gaps. So those are the gaps now we are trying to address. And one of the biggest gaps we have identified was we were trying to address production, financing, marketing, including value addition.
Everything.
Yeah, so everything. So we were taking the whole value chain and trying to walk through all the parts of the chain. And somehow, as ambitious as that may sound, it may not be very feasible. So we are now trying to narrow down on what part of the value chain are we able to focus on and make significant impact without burning out, or finding the problem too big to be handled.
So have you figured out which piece you're focused on now, or is it still in process of experimenting or figuring that out?
We have kind of not 100%, but I think we are getting there, because we have tried to think that we don't need to go to production. Someone else can do the production. So we are looking at an aggregation kind of a system, and a lot of the marketing that is done around agriculture in Kenya is where we trade commodities in their raw form. So we do not do any value addition. We just buy and sell as they are, so like in their very raw form. So a lot of people have to buy them on a very subsidized price, and then they can go add value to in other places, including some international commodities like coffee. We produce coffee beans. We just take it through some very basic processing steps just to enable us to export. So we are trying to see how do we move that chain of value addition to the next level, where we can move to trading in raw commodities to some value-added commodities. So we think what we would concentrate on now is to look at value addition as our main focus. But then we could have a component that is doing agronomic support. So the agronomic support would be working directly with the farmers to help them improve their production, but that wouldn't be our core business. So if we help them produce, then we can take it up from there to add value and maybe market. So that is where we are at right now. Then we also kind of thought that in terms of financing, initially we were thinking of funding the operations through crowdfunding. My experience with one very experienced guy who actually was in Calgary was he has worked in that kind of a platform before.
Yeah.
And he had challenges of how practical that would be for a sustainable business model. His thinking was that would only be sensible if we were a non-profit, where people do not expect money back. But if people put money in and they expect it out, and they are in very small amounts, his experience in that space was the cost of the logistical nightmare is out of this world. Number two, the cost of transferring money back and forth will sometimes exceed the returns that you had already made. So his advice was you'd rather deal with larger chunks of money from a few people than small amounts of money from so many people who expect it back. Alternatively, change the whole concept and become a non-profit. And we were not willing to go that direction. We don't want to be a non-profit where we only receive grants. We want people to make money out of it. So we are trying to see how the most viable alternative to financing. And the other thinking is we will still have money coming in, but we'll need to limit the minimum amount to what we would consider will make economic sense. So initially we were open to very small amounts of money. Now we are not very open to very small amounts of money. So part of why our platform is not up.
Right.
Because our platform was almost accepting very little amounts of money. And people had already started making inquiries, but we didn't want people to put in their money before we had figured out what we want to do. So we had to bring it down before we develop a more realistic model.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know when I heard you speak before, you were talking about your initial pilot, which is a great success. But the interest there is it wasn't necessarily testing the crowdfunding piece, because you had one major investor and it worked really well. So now you've learned a bit more from talking to people who've been there, done that, and learned kind of the challenges you would face if you were doing micro investing. So yeah, really interesting. So it just goes to show how important it is to get started and test your model, and then talk to people who have experience in that model to see what their advice is. Because it's changed your whole course, your whole path, right?
Yeah, true. So the only thing that remains constant is that you're still in agriculture. So and we want to transform it. But in terms of the how keeps on changing. And I think as a startup, you have to be open to all those changing wheels. So, because you cannot say this is it. It may take 2-3 years before you can say this is it. And I think the world is changing very fast. So if you're static, it may actually work against you. So we are willing to be open, to learn, to change, to mutate.
But your goal has stayed the same. In terms of wanting to transform agriculture and help these farmers make a better living, right?
Exactly, yes.
Wonderful. So I want to ask you a little bit more about yourself, and then I think we'll get back into your model a little bit more as well when we finish up.
Yes.
But what do you think has given you an advantage, or been kind of the best mindset, approach, or philosophy, or something about the way that you tackle your social enterprise that has made a difference for you?
So for me, I think the biggest strength we have is our understanding that agriculture is a business, and that is something our parents did not understand. Our parents, who are the owners of the farms that I'm talking about, have never looked at agriculture like a business. So they really do not care how much they put in and how much they get out. So a lot of the times, actually, if you sit down with them and you just do some spreadsheets and try to put in some data, you realize they actually run on a loss every year. So they actually end up losing money every year, but they don't know they are losing money.
Yeah, if you're not tracking it.
In this sector, they're not tracking it. So what I think is a very significant role in this whole sector is if you're able to use data to make some decisions, you're able to tell people this is a good business or this is not a good business. So at least we will prevent people from investing money where they will lose it. And we will encourage them to invest money where they can get some return. For me, my understanding of poverty is if you're poor and you're losing the give you return, you continue getting poorer and poorer and poorer. So if this whole discussion of Africa and that world countries getting out of poverty will need to change, we will have to figure out from losing money. And about 70% of the people are farming. So assuming, even without data, assuming 50% of those people are losing money, how do you pull that country out of poverty? So you have to address that part first before you can move to the next. So I think our biggest differentiation is that we're able to understand it as a business. We're able to use data to make some decisions. You're able to compare notes with other countries. Like I was in Canada, I would be able to see what is the production per square area for a certain commodity, and what is our production per square area for a certain commodity, and what is the cost of production in Canada in Kenya. For example, our country is sugar. We produce sugar, and sugar in the whole world, all countries that produce sugar in the world, most expensive. So, including very rich countries like Germany, they have sugar, but they are ours, and we are a developing nation. So we spend more money. How do you uplift those kind of people out of poverty? Because our production costs are way above what you would call the world standard or the world average.
So it's kind
those
of
are the gaps that I think we need to,
Yeah, the best practices. You're acting as a way to build skills and capacity in that industry in Kenya and other parts of Africa, so that they can raise the efficiency and effectiveness of the farming, right? Yeah.
Yes, true.
I just want to mention, I forgot to say for everybody watching, Liddy had a comment earlier. She found what you were talking about really interesting with the economics of crowdfunding. And if you guys have any other questions when you're watching, please pop them in the chat and we'll answer them. That's what we love to do, is answer people's questions. And so Sammy, you've talked a little bit about some of the advice you got in Calgary that's shifted your model, and from your experience working with the farmers every day. What's some of the best advice you'd like to share with other social entrepreneurs who are in a similar position in those early stages of validating their business model and figuring out the best way to achieve that goal they're working towards?
Okay, I think the first thing that you need to know is which sector am I in? Which sector do I want to transform? And because any sector that you're in will have so many challenges, but you have to first of all identify. You cannot say you want to change the world.
Sorry, it's getting louder. There's a party there.
I think a few guys,
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. So my thinking is you have to first of all understand which sector you are in and make, this is the sector that I want to transform, rather than saying I want to change the world, because that may be too big goal that may not even be practical. And then when you identify the sector that you want to, if it's health, for example, Africa has a lot of challenges. If you're operating in Africa, it's easy to pick up the sector. You can say, I want to change agriculture, I want to change health, transport. You can pick a sector. Mm-hmm. And then once you pick a sector, I think you need to understand, before you even pin on one point of the sector you want to transform, you have to understand what are all the challenges in that sector, and then look at what role can you play in all those gaps, and try to keep on sharpening your focus, because I think if you focus on it very broadly, you don't even end up being very impactful. But if you keep on narrowing your focus, you will be able to make an impact in one of the many parts of that sector. And I think the other thing is you have to be open to learning. You have to be open to failing and to understanding it in a different way, and be open to criticism. And sometimes it may not be very comfortable, but you have to. If someone is telling you something based on some data, whether you like it or not, you will have to listen. Otherwise, you will end up making very wrong decisions. So,
being
as an
adaptable.
entrepreneur, you have to be adaptable and be able to listen to the feedback that is coming back to you. Actually, more than you're even telling people what you're doing.
Wonderful. So Solène asked us a question. She's my partner and co-host of the lab here. So you guys are virtually meeting via our interview right now. And she actually lived, I think, in Nairobi or maybe another big city in Africa. I forget, Solène, if you want to pop in the chat. So she has been in a similar type of environment before. But her question is, are you in touch with other people tackling the same problem in other countries? Your initiative sounds so scalable, it can be applied in many countries with similar agriculture landscape. So that's a great question. Yeah.
Yes, I have people. Actually, we have a forum of about 1,000 entrepreneurs across Africa, and all of them are working in different parts of the economy. Some in agriculture, some in health, all manner of sectors. And the intention was we were brought together through a program, and so I basically have a friend or two in every country in Africa. And the intention of that forum was, can we be able to discuss our business models across the countries and see what is applicable in this part of the world and in my country, so we can be able to compare notes. So the initial thinking was we needed to pilot it completely in Kenya. We also had Nigeria in our mind. We actually had 10 countries in Africa that we were targeting. But that will only happen when we are sure of how our business model works. But the idea was, if it works in Kenya, it will work in so many other African countries because the challenges are very, very similar. The cultures will be a bit different, but we share a lot of similarities. I have been to Nigeria, and I stayed with some farmers, and the experiences are basically the same. For example, food waste, how do we handle food waste after harvest? So that technology, you find the same challenges they face in Nigeria is the same challenges farmers face in Kenya. You go to Zambia, the same challenges. So the idea is, if you're successful in Kenya, we can bet that we will be successful in about a third or so countries in Africa. So that is the dream. The dream is to move forward and go to a few other countries in Africa and hopefully transform the whole continent.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, we wish you the best in this journey of continuing to validate your business model and find the most efficient way to connect that investment with the farmers and help them grow their initiatives.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Let's see. I think another comment came in.
Yes.
But I don't see it. We'll see if it shows up. So how can our community, the Global Social Entrepreneurs Lab here, how can we support you or stay in touch? Or is there anything you want to share with us? And let's do the give and take, the collaboration piece, which is the most fun that we have, connecting people from all around the world.
Yeah, so my biggest interest in this kind of a forum is you want to interact with people from very different backgrounds and very different worldviews. And the thinking is by those kind of exchanges, people are able to learn what works and what doesn't work, and what mistakes happen elsewhere that we do not repeat, or what lessons are we not learning from our mistakes. So the interaction level is a very interesting part for me, to get feedback, get interactions, to get ideas and collaborations from just trying to understand how the world works. And comparing notes. For example, you're in Calgary, Alberta I came to learn, is one of the biggest farming provinces in Canada, and that was mind-changing for me. So those experiences of what does it mean to be a farmer in Calgary or Alberta, and what does it mean to be a farmer in Africa? So, what are the disconnects, and what are the lessons that can be learned? So that interaction would be very helpful. Another thing is, for entrepreneurs, sometimes it feels like you're lost, and like the journey is very complicated. So
Yeah.
it's not just a forum where who can tell you, okay, fine, you may sound a little bit crazy, but it's fine to be crazy. I'm also crazy, so that helps you move on. And of course, the other thing is, if you have expertise in economics and agriculture, mostly development economics and agriculture, you can always throw us your ideas, your suggestions, your questions, because of course you can also learn from the questions. And from there, we can be able to keep on validating our business model. And finally, if you come across money that is looking for a home, you can always tell them that there is a home called Africa that is looking for investment, especially in agriculture.
Yeah.
And the returns are very, very handsome. So if done correctly. So we are trying also to be the advocate, saying that I come from the school of thought that now believes more in investment than aid. So that's a discussion I would be willing to have with anyone, anytime.
Yeah. Wonderful. Lots of rich information and room for discussion there and learning from each other. So if anybody listening is involved in crowdfunding or agriculture or has an interest in Africa in general, then definitely you guys should connect and swap notes and war stories about the journey. So Selene confirmed she was in Johannesburg for 3 months and Lagos in Nigeria for 6 months. She hasn't been to Kenya, but she would love to go. So, Selene, if you're ever in Kenya, you have a friend?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so Sammy, any last words before we wrap up? Any words of wisdom or questions you want to leave people with? I know you've shared a lot already.
All right. So thank you for inviting me to this show. It was my first, and it's also a very good experience. I love music. I have never used the Be Live kind of system. I'm used to the old system, Skype and all that. So I'm open to learning, and that's credit to you. And for all the viewers, you must be in this forum because there is something you're trying to figure out about the world and how the world works. And unfortunately, you may not be able to figure it out in a day or in 2 days or even in your lifetime. But that struggle is worthwhile. So let's keep chatting and let's keep exchanging and trying to understand how the world works. And more importantly, why are some communities so poor or others are very rich, and how can we bridge that gap?
Very well said.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sammy, for sharing, and we wish you the best of luck as you move forward. And please come back and update us on when your new website is ready, and if you run into any questions or have learnings to share along the way. That's what we're here for, and that's what we love doing. So thank you, Sammy. I think we have one more comment coming in, and then I will wrap things up. It's coming in. Thanks for your insights. It was so great to connect. And that's from Selene. Yeah. Thanks again. We'll stay in touch, and we'll talk soon.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.